It's Tom and Dan here with Bart Marek to talk about selling your property.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully we can answer a couple of questions for you.
Absolutely.
Give you kind of an overview and a rundown of what you can look forward to when you're selling a property.
So let's start right now. Bart, when it comes to selling your property, let's say I'm going to sell my house. What's the first thing I should do to sell my house or to even prep my house to make it,
desirable
for potential buyers?
If Tom Van calls me up and says he wants to sell his house,
Yes.
the first question I'm going to ask is why. In fact, I'm going to ask all my clients why, because it's an important question to start to figure out what the motivation is behind selling the home. Some people have to move because of a job, kids, maybe they just need a bigger house. That's an important factor when you decide how you're going to start approaching the process of selling the home.
Sure.
In doing that, next thing we take a look at is what's the home worth? What are the comps available in the area? What we'll do is come in, study the neighborhood that you live in. And if it's a cookie-cutter neighborhood, usually it's pretty easy to get a pretty square number pretty fast.
Yeah.
If you're in a rural neighborhood, a bigger home, or you have larger acreage, it can be a little more difficult to try to boil down a number. But what we'll do is take a look at the most recent sales, typically in the last 6 months of what looks comparable, and try and find a price range that your home's going to fit into.
Okay.
Once we find that price range, the next step is really going to be to start to take a look at the house and see what type of work it needs. You mentioned, what do I need to do to prep the home for sale? Well, I don't typically recommend spending a lot of money to put into the house just to sell it, unless there are things that need to be repaired. The big things that you want to look at when selling your home is going to be the age of the roof, because if it's past 15 years, it's going to be hard to sell it for a buyer to come in and buy it with insurance standards the way they are. Usually insurance companies want to see homes that have a roof 15 years or less.
Absolutely the case. In fact, that's exactly what I had to do to my house in order to get it on the market, desirable for sale. Remember, I got a new roof on my house. Still lived in it a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, knowing that I was going to eventually want to sell it.
Absolutely. It's one of those pieces that most people don't think about when they're selling their home, but it's a very important part of the process. The other pieces that kind of elude are going to be those other parts of the home that you don't think about. What's your electrical system? Here in Florida, we have, it's not uncommon to find some older homes built in the 70s or before that have what's called a Federal Pacific electric box on them, which are uninsurable. And if it's uninsurable, you can't sell the house to somebody who has a mortgage. You can only sell it to somebody who has cash. You also want to take a look at the plumbing. Polybutylene piping is pretty common in Central Florida. That type of piping existed between the 70s and the 80s. If it has polybutylene, you need to get that corrected. There are little things like that are very common that you want to go and inspect the house, make sure that none of those pieces are there, and then it's ready to sell, that it's liquid to be on the market, that someone can come in and buy it with a mortgage or cash, I guess, right away. When it comes to prepping the home and making it look good, the key thing that you want to focus on is making sure, first off, it doesn't smell. I've been in a lot of homes where you have somebody who's been living in the house for 20, 30 plus years, and they got dogs and cats, and they got real comfortable with that scent over the years, and it just happens. When you're selling a home, odor can be the biggest problem that you have when trying to sell it, and it may not even be apparent to the seller.
Yeah, more than likely it probably isn't. It's like we've all done that move where we walked out of our own homes, spend some time walking around the neighborhood. You're outside. You walk back in, and you can smell the chili you just cooked for the past 3 days. Everybody's done that, but you don't smell it when you're in it.
No, it smells like home to you.
Yeah, exactly.
The best smell for a home is really no smell when you're prepping the home. The other things you want to take a look at is I always recommend that you fix your entrance or fix up the entrance to your home. If it's a condo, if it's a house, the one thing you will always encounter when you're showing property to a buyer is you're always going to pause at the front door. And that's the first time that buyer is going to take a look around and kind of survey what they think about the house, what they think about the property. Because it takes a couple seconds to get the key out of the box, put it in the door, and open it up. During that time, they're going to look around and make an instant judgment on whether or not they want to buy that house. So if the front of it looks good, your doorway or entranceway, that's a big factor that helps out quite a bit.
Wow.
The other thing you want to do is make sure all the lights in the home work. It's real important that when you walk into a house to show it to somebody to sell, that everything turns on. If you start flipping switches and nothing turns on, it gives kind of a negative effect. It doesn't look good on the house. It looks dark. You're not able to see things. It's important to make sure that it's lit up right.
Also puts in their mind that already something doesn't work.
Correct.
Yeah.
Those little psychological things, you want to make sure that's taken care of. And this is real simple stuff. The other thing is if you're going to be living in the home or have your things there, you want to make sure it's decluttered. I mean, it's very basic, stuff. You want to make sure that it looks like it could be anybody's home, not just your home.
Yeah.
So you want to take all those pieces, declutter, depersonalize it along the way.
So you have one of those hoarder rooms. You want to take care of that because you don't want to open the door to a bunch of stuff piled up in a room, and immediately, even though all that stuff will be gone, the room will be empty. But in the person's mind, because a lot of it's psychological, that just puts a negative connotation.
Oh, absolutely. If you look into a room and there's a bunch of crap sitting on the floor, no one wants to move into the house with a bunch of crap on the floor.
Yeah,
you know?
even though it's going to eventually be gone,
Right.
people can't see past that.
And it is so funny what you're talking about with lights. Like, I've been in houses before. I bought my home here in Baldwin. There were, houses that I'd go to see, and I'd flip on light switches, and maybe one light works and the other's broken. And immediately in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, the house is broken. Which I know isn't true, but it's just psychologically, that's where you go.
What about paint and carpet? Is that not as much of a big deal?
Carpet falls into the smell factor. That's
Okay.
usually where that comes from the most. So having carpet cleaned is always a good idea.
Yeah.
Paint is something that if you're going to do it the right way. Don't do it yourself. Hire somebody to do it professional so it looks good. It's not that much more to hire a professional to come in and do it.
Yeah, it's really not.
Yeah,
and they
and-
know how to edge the lines. Maybe they have the special equipment. Plus, they can do it for a fraction of speed that you can't do that.
Right.
Unless you have the sprayer and know what you're doing, you can't do it like they do it.
And if you're selling a $200,000, $300,000 home and it costs $1,000 to paint the house and make it look nice, where you're going to get that money back is not just going to be in money, it's going to be in time too.
Yeah.
That you list the property and it takes the length to sell that property.
Our entire studio, lobby, bathroom, and office was painted in less than an hour because the guy had a spray gun, knew exactly what he was doing, and it was very economical.
Yeah.
Really, really cheap.
It gets rid of the smell, it updates the home really quick, and it is relatively cheap. Other cheap thing you can do too is a lot of times just put sod in the front yard. Put a couple bags out there, spruce it up a little bit. It really does help, especially when you're trying to create a little bit of curb appeal to the home as well.
I was going to ask you about landscaping, cleaning up your landscaping, putting in some mulch and some simple things like that is always a good idea, but not too much money. Because I was going to ask you,
You want to go broke fixing it up. But.
like someone, you shouldn't be putting money to redo your kitchens or bathrooms before you sell your house, because that's not going to. Are you going to get money back?
No.
Okay.
The best time to remodel your home is going to be somewhere a few years before so you can enjoy it. It always makes it a lot easier to sell a home if the home's current. What I mean by that is stone countertops, wood cabinets, new flooring. That type of stuff will make it sell very fast. But there's no point in spending that money because you won't get that return from it if you do it right before you sell the house. You might get some of it back, and it will help you sell the house faster, but usually it's not worth the labor and the time to go through and remodel for somebody else. You might as well just discount the price of the home off and let the new owner go ahead and do it for themselves as well. One of the other pieces you really need to consider as a seller when prepping your home for sale is the time of year that you want to sell it. As we're here moving into 2017, the way the calendar works in Florida, which is a little similar to the way it works up north, has a bit of a variation, is that the springtime, basically moving from about late February till about June, is the primary time of the year that we sell. And that's because that follows the northern path for buying and selling real estate.
Sure.
They purchase in the spring so they can move in the summer when there's no snow on the ground. And because we, here in Florida, we get so many people coming in from down up north, that's just the time they tend to buy en masse.
Yeah.
The rest of the selling season maintains. The summer's okay, the fall is okay, but then as we move into the winter months, it slows down quite a bit, especially where we're at right now here in December, moving into early January. So it really does also depend when you want to sell. Spring is usually the most preferential time of the year. Later in the year, maybe November, October, can be two good months to list in as well.
So you can actually make a lot more money listing your house at a specific time of year.
Yes, because there's a relationship between the time it takes to sell a home and the amount you're going to get from it. And this is a strategy I use too when it comes to trying to maximize the value from it. If someone comes to me and says, I want you to sell my home, get it listed right away, what I'll try to do is list it on a Wednesday. If I get listed on a Wednesday, I put it on the MLS, the pictures, all the marketing gets spread across the web by Thursday morning. At that point, you have an audience across the web looking at it, and they start scheduling showings for the weekend, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
What I want to do is cram as many buyers into that weekend as possible so they can see each other, so that hopefully if one writes an offer, I get another offer on top of that, and then I can get them to bid against each other. And once I get that going, then I can usually get somewhere around full price for the home. If the property sits too long, meaning if it goes into a month, 2 months, 3 months, it's going to be a lot harder to get anything close to list price. So there is that relationship. involved with there. And the seller does need to be realistic about what the price is going to be on the home. We always try to price it towards the higher end of the range early on, but if it's not showing, then the ultimate factor behind selling a house is price. I can do all the marketing, HDR photos, YouTube, postcards, all that stuff day in, day and night. But the bottom line is that it's going to boil down to what the price is of the home to bring somebody in, pick it up.
Next question. We talked about a little bit about deciding what to price your house or my house when I'm selling it. There's a lot of websites, Zillow, and some other websites that kind of give you an idea what your house is worth. How accurate are those, and should I go off those sites at all?
Okay. Zillow, Trulia have their place in the industry, and they do help you as a seller because it's just naturally where the buyer gravitates to start looking for homes. People don't all of a sudden one day go, I'm going to buy a house. It's a gradual thing. They start thinking about it. They search the web. They like this house. They like that house. And they find it on Zillow. They find it on Trulia. The problem with Zillow, Trulia is it's just a mathematical equation that doesn't take common sense into effect when it comes to figuring out that price. For example, if you use Zillow to, let's say you have a neighborhood where one side of the street is lakefront and the other side of the street is not. Zillow does not take into account the left side of the street is lakefront and this side is not. It just homogenizes the price between all of those. So if, like where you live, Tom, 2 streets away from you is Orange County. You're in Seminole County.
Yeah.
It's 2 completely different homes because you got different schools than the guy that's 9 hours away from you.
Yeah.
So it's you have to, Zillow doesn't take those little pieces into account. If you're doing just a cookie cutter neighborhood and that's all it's using from the same neighborhood, then fine. But it's probably not. If you live in any type of concentrated area, it's going to pick and choose around. It's not accurate when it comes to pricing a home out.
Gotcha.
The best way to price it out is to look at the way an appraiser is going to look at it. Someone comes in to buy your house, they put an offer on it, they're going to hire an appraiser at some point, and you need to follow the same model they use, which is they look 6 months back within about a 2-mile radius at max for similar age, similar size of home with similar updates and upgrades. And they take those prices and they put them together and try to come up with a price that matches your house based on square footage and a couple other factors with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Another question I ask is, when I do sell my house, how do I get paid? Is it going to be?
I think that's a completely. It's a simple question, but I think it's something that people think about a lot. Because you are dealing with a lot of dough, and you want to know where and how you're going to get that cash.
Yes.
Yeah. The bottom line, why you start the process is to get that cash.
Yeah, exactly.
And it takes a little while. When we first accept a contract, when you're selling a property and someone comes in and takes a look at it, and we accept it and we start moving forward, the process from that point takes about 6 weeks, depending on the type of loan or however they're purchasing the property. From that point, once we go to closing, sit down at the table and everybody signs, and closing is just that simple. Usually what I do is the seller, I have them sign first, the buyer signs separately, so the two really don't ever meet. Once the buyer signs, which is the last piece of the closing process, and the funds get wired from their lender and they put down their funds, you can have the money sent to you however you like. Most people have it sent via wire, so they get those funds within a couple of hours. I've had some clients that want that check in their hand with their name written on it. That's however you choose to get it. But at that point, once it's closed, the cash is yours. You can move it to buy a new house, put it in your bank, go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, Bart. I want to sell my house now.
Do you really?
Because the process, now I know. So,
It is funny how, once you go through the process and you've had a good experience, I feel like, and I know a lot of our, the people that we work with, a lot of our listeners have great experiences with you. It's funny how once you've done that and you have a realtor that knows exactly what they're doing, you're not as intimidated. It becomes more of a pleasurable process. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So cool.
It's a very standard process. I do this all the time. I'm doing about 50-some deals in 2016, so I know the process very, very well.
And you find a lot of people that are intimidated, though, because this is all new stuff for them, right?
Yeah,
like a lot of the new home buyers, stuff like that.
I had a first-time home buyer that we closed with yesterday, and I could tell he was a little nervous at each step along the way. And
it's very intimidating. I won't kid around. Yeah, it's like I remember buying my first house. Like you get the scratchy throat, you're sweating. Yeah. I mean, but you've done it how many times now?
I'm very comfortable with the process.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes I think some of my clients might think it's a little unnerving that I'm as comfortable as I am in some of the scenarios.
No, I like
into.
it. Put you at ease.
But there's nothing I've run into yet. Most of the time, I can handle just about anything that comes our way.
Yeah.